Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck. Hit up the Facebook page at Clocker Sports, the website clockersports.com, and the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Man, day umpteen without any live sports going on, but we still have a lot to talk about. Both leagues have actually given us a healthy dose of news to get after. So let's get right into it, shall we? We shall. First up, talking about the NBA, and an interesting bit of news. I thought was something that kind of caught me off guard, surprised, not really surprised, but we all know that the LA Clippers are in need of a new home because where they play currently, where they should be playing currently rather, the Staples Center is home to the Los Angeles Lakers, and they will forever be the little brother, even more so because of playing in their building where they are sharing the living quarters of their big brother. That's something that'll forever and ever be the case. Well, owner Steve Ballmer is trying to change that. He is attempting to he's buying the LA Forum, where the Los Angeles Lakers used to play their home games from 1967 until 1999 when the Staples Center opened. So what's interesting to me about that, though, and it's just really a thought process type of thing or a logic kind of thing, if you're trying to get out of playing at the Staples Center because it is the Lakers' home and you don't want to be, second fiddle, second banana to them in the place that you're trying to call home, is it really better to buy their sloppy seconds? I don't necessarily know if that, that might not be better going to their old used up, but they didn't had it. they no longer want it. It's been sitting by the side of the road. Now I know that's not true, but you get my point. I'm not sure that this is necessarily breaking that image of being the little brother and having to be in the Lakers' shadow. Just a thought. I know it'll be theirs and it'll be their building and all that, and I get it. He owns it. I get all of that. It still used to be the Lakers' home. Just saying, it's not too much you can really say about that to kind of make it seem less of a little bit of a rub, you know what I mean, to it. So, in other team ownership, kind of financial, whatever you want to call it, news, outside of the basketball floor type of news, owner of the Rockets, Tillman Fertitta, has been pushing for the economic restart. This actually goes back to last week and a little bit in the week before, but he's been pushing for things to get back going. And a lot of people around the NBA are wondering if he'll be selling the Rockets anytime soon. We know that they were trying to find out ways to get below the cap around the trade deadline, below the luxury tax, around the trade deadline, and also, of course, all of the fallout from General Manager Daryl Morey tweeting out about China and Hong Kong. That was before everything broke out with COVID-19. And so there's a lot of speculation that Fertitta could be on the way out of the ownership group. You could see the Rockets, as you see them now, no longer be constituted this way. Some speculation of where players could go. James Harden, New York, things of that nature. Just random destinations. But the crux of it all, the point of it all is that there's a lot of moves out of Houston that would suggest that this current setup is not one that's built to last. And I think a lot of people kind of got that feeling anyway with the moves that they made. D'Antoni can only get so many iterations of the group that he thinks is perfect before the ownership would have to say move on. But Fertitta might be looking to do so a little bit quicker than anybody might have really expected. Other unexpected news, really it's not unexpected if you've been paying attention to what's been going on and kind of saw how the league was, but it appears that the Brooklyn Nets will be the first to try to break up this new era of duos across the NBA. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant not put that on them. The Brooklyn Nets are rumored to be looking to move some of their younger players for a third star. Now, we know that they just recently made a big fuss to get DeAndre Jordan into the starting lineup, so it wouldn't be him, but you could imagine that Jared Allen will be available for the right trade. They are also probably looking to move Karis LeVert. They are, I guess, they like Taurean Prince. I don't know if that's a proper way to put it, but that's a guy that might be one to stick around. But also look for Spencer Dinwiddie. So Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, and Jared Allen could all be on the move for a third star. Now, it's kind of hard to really picture who necessarily would go through. Maybe I'll go into that a little bit more in detail on the next episode, but it's just interesting because Nets ain't even playing at full strength and they already trying to break up what's going on. People were happy, me included, that the NBA kind of gotten back to, I don't want to say gotten back because it's really also about a three-headed monster when you're going up against the top tier teams. But I think it was just a good change of pace to see kind of a more balanced league this year before things got interrupted. But the Nets are like, nah, nah, son. Now, this could be a signal that maybe KD is not so sure about his recovery. I'm just getting into the weeds at this point, but I mean, you kind of got to wonder the push. So in advance, could be a little bit of foreshadowing, but also this is also telling on why Kenny Atkinson may have wanted out with so much change going on to a roster that, by the time it was all said and done, wouldn't be anything that he had coached prior to this season. So I could see him feeling like maybe it's time to get out now before they get me out. Look like they got him out anyway, but you know what I mean. Like, it could have gotten a lot uglier had they tried to drag this thing out, because if they go through with this, which I expect them to when they find a suitable target, it's going to be a whole different group of guys except for the big three, and those three are going to call the shots, and it wouldn't be in his it wouldn't be in his best interest to stick around and wait for them to make his decision. As we know, they make decisions on a whim, and I don't mean that they don't consider them deeply. What I mean by that is that they make decisions that don't necessarily make sense to everybody else. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see them go up and says, to want to make a coaching change next year, even though they were winning, if they felt like they could get better results from a different coach. So that's just one of the things. It's just, man, the Nets went from being a team that I thought the Bulls should emulate with how they were building up their culture and rebuilding their image, to now I'm kind of steering away because they're doing a little bit much. They kind of hit the acceleration button on that on the rebuild, and it's gotten to a place where I'm just not necessarily sure that I would want the Bulls to jump into right now. They couldn't anyway. They're not close enough, but it's just like, ooh, okay, Nets. Everything now recently has been kind of one eyebrow raised every time I read it, just because it's not what I'm used to reading from them lately, and kind of, again, it's the next step in their process, I guess. Every team is taking it at some point. They seem to be taking theirs, so be it. In other non-active, non-live sporting event sports news, the international sports conglomerate ESPN has finally announced that they're going to move up their documentary, The Last Dance, to April 19th. The Last Dance is a documentary covering the 1997-98 Chicago Bulls final championship team. 2 times for the players. Man, we're going to get to see the team that knew that it was going to be a wrap after that year, and just it's unprecedented access to all the people who were involved in it, camera crews and all that kind of stuff. Really exciting, and a really perfect time for people need a distraction. It's one that's been highly anticipated even before everything got shut down, and now they're probably going to have like undivided attention just because it's going to be so many great moments to relive throughout that entire season. So that's one thing to look forward to. April 19th, the documentary. I'm excited. I'm stammering over it. ESPN, April 19th, Last Dance documentary. 1997-98 Chicago Bulls team, final championship run. Man, don't miss it. I know I won't be. I'll be recording it because that's gonna be one for the archives too. Because oh man, just ESPN is listening to the people. I mean, they kind of were forced to. It's a smart business move, but still, they're doing it. That's all that really matters, I guess. The NBA, while trying to maintain some of their normalcy and get some kind of content more than anything back on the TV screens, is partnering with ESPN to bring a 2K league to television sets this weekend. Something along the lines of Friday. It's going to be, I believe, 16 players in the next 10 days after that. I got to double check that daytime, but it was 16 players, and Donovan Mitchell, DeMarcus Cousins are rumored to be involved in it. I'm excited. Of course, I had the thought, but I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking that that's something they should have been doing for a while now, especially if they're not going to be able to get the league back up and running, and it's going to be tight if they do. They said they are determined to do so, and in fact, they are going to some lengths, such as even considering playing or quarantining, I guess, getting teams isolated on a Bahamian island, and then finishing out the season there so they can crown a champion. They're going to some great lengths to try to do so. It's just really sketchy right now, man. But hats off to them for being creative and thinking outside the box in a way to try to get some kind of activity going on the floor, because players need it, fans need it. But I brought this up last episode. I'm not sure how much you actually would play again, especially if you're going to somewhere like the Bahamas. I'm sure they would build some kind of a temporary court for them there. But how sturdy is it? Just all types of different things, the risk reward factor. And then I just don't know that there's enough incentive to try to force it, to shoehorn it simply for the sake of trying to get a champion crown. Now, that being said, if they do find one, go for it, right? I'm just saying, even if me, Joe fan, sitting here cheering for it, I'm not sure that there's enough reasoning for them to go ahead and do so. I think, honestly, and this is it's a ridiculous suggestion in the first place, but you'd be better off making the 2K League champion the actual champion for the year. Because you do it that way, it's just going to be all types of... people who don't win it are going to want to asterisk by it. The team, especially the teams who get the closest, there's going to be all types of complaints about how it changes just random things that you just probably wouldn't have expected otherwise, because it's not in the standard setting. That's just how it goes. When you change things, when you alter it up, you're going to get those kind of complaints and those kind of offshoot kind of just... those issues, right? When you change something up, when you go off the plan, that's when you run into those issues that just are flat out stupid because they shouldn't be happening, but they are. And that'll be one of those moments that you're not careful with the NBA and trying to force, again, a game, trying to force a season to happen because they are trying to crown a champion. However, and I just have to end with this. I'd rather end with this part than that part because that part's so negative. However, if they're going to bring it back, I'll be watching. That's all I'm saying. I will be paying attention. I'm not gonna wave my finger at it. I'm gonna just sit back and watch it. I'm just saying I wouldn't rush it for that purpose alone. But I ain't mad at you, because everybody around here needs some basketball in their lives. Everybody around here needs sports in their lives. But we're supposed to be in the NBA season right now, and it's just not happening. We're supposed to be getting ready for playoff runs and all types of stuff. March Madness has got canceled. It's bad. It's bad around these parts, y'all. So if they can get something going, I take everything I just said back. If they can get anything going, please put it out there. Go to the Bahamas. Go out there. I will. Let me drive the boat. We can get this done because it's bad. And then again, back to the real quick before I move on. The Balmer buying the Forum in LA. That's definitely a step back, because there's a whole Seattle. Now I know you can't move to Seattle now because you done got Kawhi and Paul George and you sold them on being in LA. But dang it, I know Seattle has to be feeling all types of jilted at this point. Like, we got a whole place up here that be just for you, and you decided to still come to be in the Lakers sloppy seconds. That's just a horrible look for them, really. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm probably looking too much into it, but I don't think that's as big of a step up as they might want you to believe in a perfect world. Going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm going to talk about some of the NFL goings on. Not as much the free agency side as it has been in previous weeks. A little bit more speculation, but there has been some news regarding a major piece of legislation that just passed. So we're going to talk about that. Stick right here. Triple Zeros, BRB. You know what to do. Triple Zeros. Welcome back to Triple Zeros. I am your host, Josh Buckhalter. And switching to the NFL now, catching up on a couple of things from last week. Didn't do the double up with it being so slow. But I did want to catch up on this one. The owners wanted to delay the draft, which will be proceeding as scheduled. And the league was against holding off. They wanted to maintain some sort of normalcy. Obviously, you also don't want to lose all of the revenue that you're going to lose anyway, some of because of not being able to have the live festivities. But the interesting part to me was a memo sent out by the commissioner's office. Roger Goodell sent out a memo saying that the draft will go on, and then he served warning to the rest of the owners around the league that chose to criticize the stance, writing, "Public discussion of issues relating to the draft services no use." Let me try that one more time. Goodell wrote, "Public discussion of issues relating to the draft serves no useful purpose and is grounds for disciplinary action," per Adam Schefter. Public discussion of issues relating to the draft serves no useful purpose and is grounds for disciplinary action. In other words, if you're talking about it, I can find you, I can dock you some draft picks, do whatever the heck I feel like it, because you shouldn't be talking negatively. Now, that's obviously what it means. Not just talking about it. It's only if you're talking disparagingly about it. But that's interesting because, first of all, First Amendment. I know that he works for the betterment of the league, so he's protecting the shield more so than the individual owners. But the owners still have, I think, I don't want to say more power than him, but I would figure that they would be able to gather up enough power to usurp that pretty quickly. It just seemed like a very harsh tone to take unnecessarily when I'm not sure they would be speaking out anyway, honestly. As much as there was hubbub about some of the owners wanting to remain away from action, I'm sure the majority of them wanted to get back to business in some capacity so they can try to recoup some of their money. They're not going to have an off season. Some have speculated there won't be a season. That's a bit too far for me to go out and say right now, but I could definitely see a truncated off season. We're already seeing it affect a lot of the off season maneuverings, as you heard that there's no traveling, so there's no physicals for other teams. You can only be outdoors or outside of team facilities. There can't be any travel involved, so like that's warm weather places like Florida have been doing well, but it's bad for places like New England and stuff like that there. But by and large, it's been phone conferences, such as Joe Burrow talked to Brown, owner of the Bengals, to talk about the city and things of that nature, but by video conference because they can't meet face to face. Just a ever changing landscape, and so when you hear about the way that Goodell's speaking on this bill, it's just odd. It's just an odd stance because he works for the owner, so it's a weird stance to take. Sound like you're going against them. Now, maybe that's not for the owners. Maybe I'm reading that initial statement wrong, and it's not directed to them at all. It's directed to everybody else, such as the players. It's coaches maybe. It's just a weird, very strongly toned memo for something that would probably be best left alone. Let them say what they're going to say, and you do what you're going to do because you clearly made your decision despite anybody else's request. Now, there's a good chance that it gets canceled, depending on what kind of a function they're trying to have here. But it's just a weird memo to go that above and beyond on the limb. Speaking of weird writings, however, Eric Reed has brought up a concern over the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement that we know was highly contentious and was a very close vote in the end, including 500 no votes from the players. But Reed brought up the subject of changing the language for post-playing career health care. And in the language change, it went from saying that players would be covered before January 1st of 2015 to saying coverage would begin for anybody after January 2015. So it's a significant change because you're excluding a whole lot of players if you change that from including before to including after. So not small. But the problem here, what's even worse, is that it was changed in between the draft that was sent over there for their approval and then the draft that, and they signed, and then the draft that was sent back for them completed and everything. He went through with his lawyers and they found this inconvenience or this inconsistency and are demanding that the CBA be voided. Now, it is important to note that Reed has been a staunch opponent of the CBA since before it was even ratified. However, that's a very valid concern because it alters and affects for their brain health care after their playing career, no less. So I'm not one who believes in coincidences, Those two things together lead me to believe that it was a little bit, at least, intentional sounds malicious, but it's definitely, it wasn't an accident that they didn't designate it properly. But they have to get this right. It shouldn't have been changed, and when they do get it right, then they send it back over. But until then, the players should definitely make a ruckus about it, because if they'll change this without you saying anything and try to get away with it, they'll change anything. And there might be more. I would imagine that they've gone through the rest of it with the fine-tooth comb, but definitely not something to overlook or think too smallly of, because that's significant. That is very significant. Some other bookkeeping news: the Kansas City Chiefs have $177 in cap space. To give you a little bit of perspective there, the next team is the Patriots, $891,000. Now, I'm not a rich man, but 177 does not beat what is in there now, in the old pocketbook now. Chiefs gonna have to do some work there. $177 can't sign you anybody. You can't sign for the minimum. You can't do. I don't even know how they left with that much money. Give it to somebody. Give it to a vendor or something. I'm not sure what necessarily, what purpose it's serving in their docket right now. But that's an interesting thing to have going on. They're gonna have to make some tough choices coming up here soon, because $890 or for $177 is not going to do you much good of anything anywhere on any team, for any signing, for any contract. Another one from last week that I didn't get a chance to get to. Jimmy Graham spoke with Jeff Dickerson of ESPN 1000, talked about his signing with the Bears. I want to touch on this because I've been harsh on this signing, but Graham seems dedicated to it, and he started by saying that he still feels he's fast and that he's capable of making big plays. We'll see. I'm not so sold on that part. He says the Bears' office is the closest thing to the Chiefs, in theory. Maybe not in practice, but in theory, there's some variations to it. I hope to talk about that more with the guests in the next week or so. We'll see how that all turns out. But he cited his relationship with Ryan Pace, who was a guy who took a chance on him coming out of college. Graham considered himself to be a no-touch prospect. Somebody must have told him that, because a lot of publications that I saw at the time were considering him to be an X factor, because they didn't know what his ceiling would be. But he definitely had weapon potential, and we saw what he turned out to be. But he said Pace took a chance on him, and he appreciates that, and he wants to return the favor. He also said that he thinks that Chicago is ready to win a Super Bowl. Now, that's all well and good. And honestly, the signing of Jimmy Graham is not Graham's fault at all. Taking the money, nobody blames you for that. It's literally a Pace criticism, and it should be viewed as such. But I do think it's good to hear that he is highly motivated. He says he felt the best. His knee is the best it's felt in years. We'll see. Also interested to see how they deploy he and Trey Burton, if they add anybody else to that room. But the best thing about it was his positive attitude, because I'm still not high on it, but I like that he's saying that he wants to go out there and try to prove everybody wrong. That's all you can really ask for at this stage of somebody's career, especially somebody like Jimmy Graham, who's been through the injuries that he's had, has had the success that he's had, but is still out there trying to do it. And honestly, it's coming from Green Bay, so I know he wants to at least stick it to them once or twice this season. I'm just saying. That's a pretty safe bet, right? Right? Got to be. In other Bears-related news, I guess, not really Bears news, because they didn't go through with the deal like I wanted them to, and this is honestly a lower level on my list of quarterbacks that I wanted them to go after. But Cam Newton was released by the Carolina Panthers after they signed Teddy Bridgewater to his 3-year deal. And one of the things that's been kind of talked about is how Cam and Jameis are still on the free agent wire. Both former first-round picks, both former first overall picks, and both looking for new teams. And I think if you are going to talk about it in a frame of, well, that's it's a reflection of something in Cam's situation, we'll talk about Jameis too. But more importantly in Cam, we know the records that he set as a rookie. And Jameis, even in the bad season, threw 30 touchdowns, but it was a horrible 30 picks. I get it. You got to talk about both. And I think that a lot of times we let the team view of it cloud our judgment of a player. With Cam, obviously his low point in playing career would be the Super Bowl where he didn't dive on that fumble, and people will forever criticize him for it. But I think that it's unfair to say that he won't do it when first of all, I think it's unfair to say he was scared. We see the way he plays, how beat up he's gotten trying to get touchdowns and stuff like that, how to score for his team. Now, you can say that he just wants to score to celebrate and this, that, and the third, but I haven't heard one teammate complain about him other than the receiver who is about to eat himself out of the league, and if he hasn't already. And I just don't understand where a lot of these he's bad for the locker room things come from. The kids in the area love him. People don't like him because he dresses funny. That's fine. You know who else used to dress funny but was a champion? Dennis Rodman. He had some issues too. Dennis Rodman had a lot of issues. But you gotta, I just don't think, I think a lot of times that's what it is, that if they don't like him for that purpose, for that and maybe some other reasons, but they don't like him and they let that cloud the judgment on whether or not he can be an effective player in the NFL. Now, am I going out here and saying that he's going to drop back and be a passer in the pocket consistently like a Brady in his hay or a Phillip Rivers? No, I wouldn't say that at all. But I also don't think that means that he has to be the runner that he was always either. I think if you move him around in the pocket a lot, get the pocket to move, that would help him. But also, you are allowing him to have the option and already be started. I think a lot of times what gets players is the start and stopping, and he wouldn't have to do that. If he's already getting himself warmed up, there just wouldn't be as much strain on his joints to get to full speed. And then, of course, the number one thing you could do to help him out would be give him an offensive line. I've been a major critic of Carolina's job protecting Cam over the years. They recently got one, and then look what happened. So, whatever. That was the thing. But I think that's because they had him playing. Well, no, I know why he got hurt this year. They had him playing in the third preseason game for no stupid reason, and then he ended up aggravating a foot injury and missing most of the beginning of the season, and then we know how it all played out. But they hadn't done a great job protecting him. So you protect him, you give him some weapons, and you got a motivated guy who was a former MVP, Rookie of the Year, threw for 4,000 yards, all those things, all those great things. The dual threat. And I think it's kind of like a Jimmy Graham a few years ago kind of guy where his running ability will be most valuable in the red zone now, and he's going to have to be, if it means getting him some big guys who are nimble to run shorter routes but are wide targets, so be it. Do what you have to do to maximize his skill set. That's what I want to see for Cam Newton. And then Jameis too, although Jameis' big issue was the turnovers. Cam has just been kind of erratic. It hasn't necessarily led to turnovers. And Cam's heights lead you to believe that, and MVP season honestly leads you to believe that he's got it in him to play better. Jameis kind of scares me sometimes, and that's my boy. But Jameis is just chucking and ducking. He's hoping that it makes it to somebody that he wants it to go to. Otherwise, he's going to be in big trouble when he gets back to the sidelines. So that's what I want. That's what I had to say about those two. But some interesting landing spots for Cam though that have come across. New England being the top one, obviously with Tom Brady now in Tampa, there is a glaring hole for a Super Bowl capable quarterback to get them right back, or do they go with a rebuild completely and let Jarrett Stidham run it all out? I'm not necessarily sure, but I do think that if they're going to go with Cam, then they're going to have to give him weapons too. They can't go out there with the patchwork kind of style. Now, listen, if Bill Belichick wants to prove that he's the ultimate guru of the ultimate guru of football, if he wants to prove that he is the guy, the key cog in that dynasty for the Patriots for the past few years, then he goes out there and he gets Cam Newton. And that's not to knock on Cam. That's just to say he's showing that he can win with anybody there, because that's a completely different style from what Tom Brady was. So I look forward to seeing that. Hopefully that will be the one. And, I'm a Cam fan, so I probably should have prefaced that whole little rant I did earlier by saying that I am a Cam fan. So him landing in New England would probably have me wearing a Patriots jersey. Just made myself a little bit nauseous. But I would definitely probably get a Cam Newton Patriots jersey just because I just had a good feeling my boy would be on his way to getting him a chip. Other interesting spots would be backup places, obviously, would be the Jacksonville Jaguars backing up Gardner Minshew. And I actually think he might end up winning that job away from Minshew some point throughout the season if he were to go there. And that's just because I'm not sure what Minshew's ceiling actually is. I think that over a extended period of time, I think he's more of a Case Keenum kind of guy, right? He's good for a spark and he can give you a good stretch, but over time you're going to want your higher touted prospect to be the one. And maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars go into this draft and get that guy. But as it stands, you kind of got to look at it like, all right, if he went there, he definitely goes in as the backup, but would have a chance, I think, to take over later on. Baltimore behind Lamar Jackson. That's interesting. I'm not sure that what Baltimore does, though, is as suited for Cam. It's more of a speed game with Lamar. Cam is a power run kind of guy, and I'm sure I don't want to say it's an easy switch, but I do think that it could work. It just wouldn't be. I don't think it would be the kind of what's the word that I'm trying to find here. It wouldn't be the seamless fit that your first blush would lead you to believe, right? If you've seen that Cam signed, you'd be like, oh, that's a good thing. You think about it a little bit more. Cam and Lamar are two different styles of runner, and I think that that's exactly why you see Cam maybe bypass it. It would probably it would be a good sniff. Now, one that is interesting to me is Houston. Backing up Deshaun Watson. Now I had a little frog in the throat. Yeah. Speaking of Cam going to Houston, I think he could be a good backup for Deshaun Watson. They don't run Deshaun like they do Cam, but I think that would be good for Cam. It's also not necessarily an offense that's built on dinking and dunking and being the most accurate. It's built on a lot of big plays. We'll see how it works now without DeAndre Hopkins. Traded off to Arizona for some strange reason for David Johnson, but I think that would be a better fit for Cam than going to Baltimore. Now, the other one that's interesting is Philadelphia. Philly is a team that is perennially contending for at least playoffs and recently for Super Bowls. And if you can get Cam there's a good chance that he winds up playing for significant prize at the end of the season if Carson Wentz is befallen by the injury bug once again. Because, listen, I know we like Carson Wentz in the media, right? He's the smiley, happy, energetic guy, but the injury bug is one that you can't necessarily completely write off at any point in a player's career. If they've been bitten by it once, there's a good chance that they can come back again. I'm not wishing it on him at any stretch. I like Carson Wentz, but just saying in terms of potential fits for Cam, I think that would be one that's a dark horse that not a lot of people are talking about, but it would be one that I think would work out for him if he were to end up going there. And then one that surprised even me was New Orleans. And the reason why I bring this up, and it's not just out of reckless bringing up of names, because Cam and New Orleans just don't seem to match up because of Drew Brees. But Cam Jordan actually tried to recruit him, saying that he's healthy and released him. He said one a year or two to make sure. This is a post by Cam Jordan. Adjust throwing if needed. Need a team with dynamic top-tier halfback, wide receiver, cemented improved offensive line. He said he doesn't know how to do this text prompt style, so hopefully this reaches. Basically send the feelers out there to Cam, come out here and get yourself back right. This might be, at this point in time while we're doing the speculating, that could be a signal that this might be a last hurrah type of thing for Drew Brees to try to get it done before ultimately he and the Saints move on to different pastures. Now, I doubt anything comes from this Cam Newton thing, but that is an interesting one. Philadelphia and New Orleans. Again, he's probably not going to get a starting job. The Chargers said they're not going there. If he does, it'll be with New England. Other than that, though, I just see it might be best for him to sit out and wait and just get himself healthy all the way and come back later. But I don't know. I don't know, and that's the worst part about it, because I think that I personally feel like Carolina did him a little grimy by not releasing him earlier, letting him have multiple suitors, kind of limited his options. But at this point, it is what it is. Hopefully he latches on with the team and gets a real shot to rehab his image and what he can prove what he can do in this league, because I think Cam's still one of the top tier guys when he's right and protected and has weapons, like a lot of quarterbacks really are. So that's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Follow me on Twitter at Joshy Buck. Hit up the Facebook page at Clocker Sports, the website clockersports.com. Read the stuff. Pippin Ain't Easy, Last Word on Pro Football, and clockersports.com. And, of course, as always, if you need to hit me up, the email. Did I say the email? clockersports@gmail.com. Check out our newest podcast, Punching the Clock, host Stephen Ryan. Always check out T for 3. And just go and check out the site, man. Really proud of my baby working on that bad boy. But until the very next time, you know what to do. I think that's the sound of the horns.